today, I want to begin by remembering somebody who's no more, who is missing, and who in many ways was one of the persons I remember as my mentor. That is Yogendra. Ananthamurthy is remembered rightly so as a writer. I read his Sanskar in Hindi translation. That's the only way I could access it. And I can tell you even today, Hindi translations are better than English translations because they capture the spirit of what's being talked about. And he's remembered as a literary critic, rightly so. But more than that, for me, Yogendra was a practitioner of cultural politics. And what was unique to Yogendra's practice of cultural politics is that it connected, that it was simultaneously rooted in Kannada tradition and linked to universalism. He would not give up any one of these two at any cost. It's important to remember this in a world where we are often invited to share in abstract universalism, which becomes Englishism, which becomes imitation of Europe and Western culture. Or we are invited to become rooted, which becomes downright parochial, which becomes downright chauvinist. Yogendra showed us a way away from chauvinism, away from cultural slavery of the West. And that is why I saw him as a mentor. And I'm proud to say the day I joined Aadmi party, Ananthamurthy, he was on dialysis already by then. He sent me a text message congratulating me and saying, don't come back from this. And even today, when I speak to Dalit intellectuals today, I find that they speak a language very different and fresh from what you would hear in the rest of the country. So I came here for that. I came to Karnataka for political nourishment. I met Professor Swami. I used to meet people from KRRS, which today unfortunately is completely fragmented. I used to meet friends from Dalit Sangharsh Samiti, which again is completely fragmented today. But these are extraordinary experiments in alternative politics. Lankesh Patrika in those days, Professor Yogendra Swami's agitations, these were so long, like in the 80s and 90s, these were like breath of fresh air. Something remarkable was happening. And Karnataka was the only place, to my mind, continues to be the only place where a farmer organization and a Dalit organization came together to do politics together. Nowhere else in the country people have even thought about doing something like this. It was not a political success, but let us not judge everything in the world by immediate success. Sometimes creating an idea itself is a very big success. So therefore, I am very happy that today in Karnataka, especially happy to see that the Karnataka unit of Aadmi party has gathered such bright young persons who look to future, who infuse new energy in public life. That's why I've chosen to speak today about alternative politics, political alternatives, and alternative politics. These are three very different things. Alternative to politics is some neta chor. Don't get into politics. This politics is dirty. Let's serve the society, let's do this, let's do that. Let's have an NGO, let's do a social reform movement. But let's not get into politics. I personally think, and I actually said it even during India Against Corruption days, that while I applaud the motive of those who do so, I applaud the selflessness of those who do these activities without wanting any political office. to politics in the last instance leads to creating alternatives to democracy, which is to say, politics or anti-politics is a dangerous business. It is anti-democratic in the last instance. So alternatives to politics, no, thank you. That's not what this country needs. The second is political alternatives. What is political alternatives? BJP was in power, replaced by Congress. JDS has still not lost its hope of coming back once more. JDS, BJP, Congress, Samajwadi Party, BSP, BJP. These are standard political alternatives. These are established alternatives to established politics. In Britain, they have a very nice expression for it. In England, they call the opposition party is called Her Majesty's Loyal Opposition. That is the expression they use in English. Her Majesty's Loyal Opposition. This is what I think about most of these established opposition parties. They are opposition, yes, but they are loyal to this, loyal to each other, loyal to the regime of corruption. That's what we want. So political alternatives, this game of oscillation between the established parties, is also not what this country needs. What we need is alternative politics. What is alternative politics? Alternative politics is a form of politics that brings in new political vision, that has a new and strikingly different way of realizing that vision, which brings in new culture of politics, which brings in new culture of political organizations. New vision, new method, new culture is what must be demanded of alternative politics. In today's context, where do we stand? Why do we need alternative politics? What would it mean to create alternative politics? What are the challenges and opportunities? Is the question today. Let us start with the elections of Lok Sabha held in 2014 in May. The BJP's extraordinary victory in that election took many of us by surprise. And there has been a sense of shock thereafter. What does this victory mean? This victory was followed by some parliamentary by-elections where BJP did not do too well. And many commentators rushed to declare that, okay, BJP's wave is over, Modi's wave is over. That was followed by elections in Maharashtra and Haryana, where BJP did once again very well, comes back, becomes a strong force to reckon with. And then we are again talking about continuous Modi wave now. I think we need to unpack it and understand what is this Modi wave. Because in media, in popular speculations, it is easy and it is most tempting to give everything a personalized form. It is in the nature of media that it converts every process into an event and every event into a personality. But we must decompose it. We must break it down and see what is this Modi wave? What does it mean for the country? How do we relate to it? I think the Modi wave, what is called Modi wave, I'm not either subscribing to the label or desubscribing to it. It doesn't matter. This is the name which is given by newspapers and television. I'm not bored with the names. The important thing is to understand what does it, what has contributed to the making. Many of us, friends included, Aadmi party supporters included, have the usual reaction of an opposition party. You know, BJP manipulated the media. They were lying. they use such huge amount of money. In many cases, they use muscles as well. There is some manipulation there. All that may be true. Indeed, it is true that BJP was using one of the biggest media machine, one of the biggest propaganda machine India has ever witnessed in its history. It is true that BJP used spin doctrine of the most sophisticated variety that India has ever seen. It is true that there was some degree of manipulation, coercion, use of money, and a bit of muscle power. All this went into the way. But we must acknowledge that in the last instance, the people of India were saying something when at least 30% of them, and much higher proportion in a certain pocket of India voted for Mr. Modi. There is a message there. What is the message? I think we should not shy away from the fact that that Mr. Modi had done something which is more than mere manipulation, more than mere use of media and money and such like. I would argue that Mr. Modi was addressing three anxieties. The Congress party, the established politics of this country, and especially the Congress party in the last 10 years, had created a vacuum. They had given birth to three anxieties. Mr. Modi addressed those three anxieties in ways which may be negative in the long run, but which seemed to address a need of the people. I would later argue that the only way of combating Mr. Modi is to address those three anxieties in a positive way. Mr. Modi addresses that in a negative way. We must come out with a positive way, but we must address those three anxieties. What are those three anxieties? One is political, about governance. Second is economic, about development. Third is cultural, about identity. The first anxiety was, does this country have any governance? Can my government take any decisions? Who is the leader of my country? Who is taking decisions? In the last 10 years, especially in the last 5 years of UPA regime, it was not clear. Anyone who had the misfortune of watching the Prime Minister give speeches from the Red Fort, I don't know why, but somehow I am a very compulsive watcher of the 15th August speech. I always tune into it. I always watch that. So I'm one of those, like many of you, who have the misfortune of watching Dr. Manmohan Singh give that lecture 10 times from the Red Fort. Every time at the end of it, you felt small. You felt, is this man the leader of my country? Is there a vision here? It is not about his oratorial style. Forget it, oratory doesn't matter. Greatest of Indian leaders were never orators. Mahatma Gandhi was a very poor orator. So I'm not speaking about oratory. When you watched our Prime Minister, did you get a sense that there was any conviction in what he was saying? That he had a dream for this country? That he had a vision for this country? That you would trust him to carry out that vision? Did you ever feel that? I didn't. And very crores and crores of Indians did not. They felt evacuated, they felt emasculated, they felt insulted. Especially when they read reports about what kind of decisions were being taken. The kind of decisions that we saw in the case of Kashmir, in the case of Telangana. To this day, I cannot understand who took decisions about Telangana and why. These are huge decisions for the future of our country. It was not clear who was taking decisions. So there was an anxiety about governance. was addressed by Mr. Modi. He said, country needs strong. He spoke to a vacuum. People had a need. He filled in that need. We need strong need. We need determined need. If you watch Mr. Modi perform, even if you put your television on mute, you get a sense that a leader is addressing the country with some degree of conviction. It matters to me. I'm not saying it's all positive. There is something very dangerous here. I'm mindful of the fact that all over the world, dictators have come in precisely on this slope. Wherever democracy has been dismantled anywhere in the world, it was dismantled on the slogan of strong leader. He was on his way to the airport and he got a phone call from the Prime Minister's office. Why are you wearing t-shirt and jeans? Doesn't behove of a minister. Go back and change your dress. Prime Minister, somebody on behalf of the Prime Minister was keeping an eye on his own ministry and monitoring even the dress that he was wearing on foreign trade. Now that's creepy. You feel, you feel happy about this country. You feel good that this is what's happening. All of us who detect signs of footsteps of authoritarianism in this have a responsibility. The responsibility is to come up with a positive alternative. And where is the positive alternative? Positive alternative is in the direction of Swaraj. That is to say, people being able to govern themselves. Gram Sabha being able to decide. This is what we want in my village. This is the money we have. This is our priority. This is how we are going to do it. Mohalla Sabha. As we have recently announced in Delhi, why do we need these MLA-led schemes and MP-led schemes? These are useless schemes. Why should an MLA decide what are the priorities? Why can't we give it to each mohalla? We give a certain amount to each mohalla of Bengaluru, of Delhi, and say, you know your problems best. Where is the money? Please decide openly. Where do you want to spend it? You monitor it. You are accountable. Just do it. This is a positive direction in which we can take this quest for governance. But remember, people need governance. People need a governance which is accountable, responsible, which addresses some of their concerns. We need to answer that. The second anxiety that Mr. Modi addresses is an anxiety about growth, about economic development. Does this country have a future? Are we going to develop? Are we lagging behind? China has moved forward. What about us? The UPA government had a unique distinction achieved by very few governments in the world, which is that the UPA government managed to simultaneously annoy the rich as well as the poor of this country. And they managed to convince both of them that the government was against them. This rarely happens in democracies. Either the rich feel or the poor feel. In this case, both of them felt equally, both of them felt equally deprived, both of them felt equally discriminated against. In other words, people did not feel that there was an economic future for the country. Mr. Modi steps into that. Promises move to both the parties. To one, he says, pro-business government, reforms, growth. To the other, he says, no inflation, no unemployment, no insecurity. He promises the move to both of them. It clicks. But don't blame him. he is operating in a vacuum created by someone else. And the point that Congress did not understand, is that ordinary people of this country have aspirations. The poor have aspirations. Middle class has aspirations. Those aspirations need to be addressed. He found one way of addressing it. And now that we have seen the record of his government to begin with, it's not a final judgment. We still have to see a lot of what he will do. But clearly, the trajectory he's following is that of growth at all cost. Macro, we don't know whether it will happen or not. But in terms of the strategy, in terms of what he's trying to do, it is growth at all cost, which is to say, growth at the cost of equity, growth at the cost of environment. This is the strategy that he is pursuing right now. I know many sitting in this room will disagree with it. I do. As someone who values equity, as someone who values ecology, I do find it reprehensible. But please remember, we need an alternative. And on that score, allow me to say something harsh, which is, those who speak against liberalization, privatization, and globalization in this country for the last 20 years actually do not have an alternative. I myself have come from that dream, from that drive, from that ultra, so I understand that drive very well. But criticism of liberalization, privatization, globalization is not an alternative. And what we really need is a way of combining the market and the sheer power of globalization, the sheer dynamism of market and the power of globalization needs to be harnessed in order to produce consequences which are pro-equity and pro-ecology. This is what very few people do. Those of us who are for equity and environment tend to say, therefore we are against liberalization, privatization, globalization. In our enthusiasm we say we are against market. Do we remember what happened to the country that had abolished markets? Do we remember what happened to the Soviet Union? So something needs to be thought through, something needs to be thought very carefully. So on the second score, there is an anxiety about development. Ordinary people in this country now have economic aspirations. Mr. Modi feeds it in a negative way by promising economic growth at all costs. I think it's a suicidal course in the long run. I do not know about equity, it's too early to predict that. But I definitely want to say something about one thing about environment. That Modi government is going to be perhaps the most destructive government when it comes to ecology and environment. Already in the last 5 months, this government has taken decisions which in a sense overturn all the gains made by ecology and environmentally sensitive politics of the country in the last 15 to 20 years. So yes, Mr. Modi's answers are negative. But those who want to oppose him have to come up with a viable alternative. An alternative that works. We have come to a very bad division of labor. The progressives, the egalitarians, the socialists, the leftists believe that earning money for this country is Mr. Manmohan Singh's job or now Mr. Arun Jaitley's job. But spending that money is their privilege. So you earn and I will tell you how to spend it. I wish to say with all humility and respect for my leftist friends, this division of labor cannot work. Those who want to say, spend more money on welfare schemes, also need to say how to earn that money. So we need an alternative. The third anxiety that Mr. Modi feeds on is cultural anxiety of identity. Do I have to be embarrassed about my own religion in my own country? Do I have to feel ashamed of my own languages? Should I not be able to be proud of my culture, my tradition? This is an anxiety that exists in the mind, not of only of traditional Indians, but in the minds of modern, educated, urban Indians as well. In fact, this anxiety exists more in the mind of those who have recently joined the modern urban sector than in the minds of those who live in India. This is an anxiety which Mr. Modi stoked and fed. It's a genuine anxiety. An anxiety which is faced all over the world when modern societies start coming up. Almost like Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is a unique case where the majority of that country, Sinhalese, feel that they are a minority and they start behaving like a minority. This is the kind of stuff Mr. Modi got. And he managed to convince a very large proportion of the majority of this country that they were living like a minority in this country. And to them, Mr. Modi offers an alternative. What is his alternative? Majority. We are majority. Don't worry. We will run this country which way we want. Minorities will have to live on our terms. He will never put it like this. He is too smart and clever to ever say this. But this is in effect the answer that he is giving. And this is the answer which pleases so many people. Here is a man who is saying the truth. Here is a man who has the courage to say these things. This is how lots of people say. So there is a real anxiety, and Mr. Modi provides an answer. It's not just a negative answer, it's a deadly answer. It's a deadly answer. Because this answer can actually bring down the very edifice of the Indian Republic. What distinguishes India from Pakistan was simply this. Pakistan as a country was built on the foundations of one religion. India was not a country meant for one religion. Acceptance of and celebration of diversity is the very foundation of Indian Republic. And I would say not just Indian Republic, which is 65-year-old, but actually the foundation of Indian civilization. Indicators of almost all schools compared to any other South Asian countries. And then Sri Lanka went on this path of majoritarianism. In 1956, Sri Lanka started an agitation. And what was the slogan of that agitation? If I translate it into Hindi, in our contemporary lingo, the slogan was, Sri Lanka mein rehna hai to Singla bol ke rehna. Does it remind you of something? This is the slogan with which they started. 15 years down the line, civil war started in Sri Lanka. The entire country has been in flames. Sri Lanka is for all practical purposes two countries, not one. This is the consequence in a small country of this majoritarian politics. This majoritarian politics can destroy our country. But those of us who feel so, those of us who feel the potential of this danger carry a responsibility. The responsibility is to reimagine secular politics. As I was saying to some friends just before this lecture, I think we must begin by conceding that old-style secular politics was bogus. What passed off as secular politics in this country was a fraud. I'm using very strong words. was being practiced in this country in the name of secularism was actually no secularism. It was the politics of keeping minorities hostage, especially Muslims. It was the politics of keeping Muslims as a hostage. Basically, the secular politics of the Congress variety, of the Samajwadi Party variety, of the RJD variety, they entered into a contract with Muslims. The contract was this: we will provide you security. We will save you at the time of riots. Don't ask us for anything else. Don't ask me for water, don't ask me for electricity, don't talk about schools, don't talk about hospitals. We will give you security. And just in case you forgot that we are giving you security, we will ensure that riots take place every 4 or 5 years. And then we will come and give you security. This was the secular moment. Someone had to come and bust it. And it has been busted. There will be two kinds of politics, not of a very favorable variety. So unless we recreate secular politics, this is the direction in which things are headed. Majoritarianism politics on the one hand, MIM on the other hand. So Modi and MIM, Shiv Sena and MIM, they are mirror images of each other. They contribute to each other, they feed each other. We need to reinvent a new secular politics, which must be based on talking to Muslims and other minorities as citizens of this country. Everyone was aghast. Arvind Kejriwal writing a letter addressed only to Muslims. I said, but why don't you read what the letter is? Letter talks about water, it talks about electricity, it talks about schools, it talks about hospitals. It also talks about boys who have been arrested and put behind bars unnecessarily. But it actually talks about their real life concerns. So first, it has to address minorities as citizens. 2, it must learn to speak truth and not seen as pro this or pro that. A politics which is seen to be pro-minority is actually the greatest disservice to minorities. You must be seen to be correct, you must be seen to be truthful. And 3, secular politics of the future must establish deep connects with our cultures, our traditions, the language of our religions, the language of our sex, the language of tolerance, which is built into our cultural traditions. That secularism cannot work with ordinary people. You have to draw upon multiple cultural traditions of this country and learn to speak a new language. So what I've said is, Mr. Modi addresses there are 3 anxieties, all 3 created by established politics of this country, accentuated by the UPA regime, especially by Congress. Mr. Modi provides false answers to these 3 things. It is our responsibility to provide true, positive, constructive answers to these 3. Is alternative politics. Alternative politics is not about simply being oppositional to Mr. Modi. No matter what he does, I will issue a statement against him. On Diwali Day, the Prime Minister was in Siachen. Congress issues a statement saying this is vote bank, this is election giving. How suicidal can we get? The Prime Minister is in Siachen. Why can't you simply say it's a good idea for the Prime Minister to be there? I mean, he's there to fuck up our soldiers. And isn't that a good idea? If no Prime Minister has done it before, we should simply say, well done. No, but we can't say we are opposition. We have to oppose everything that he does. This is suicide. Because what it does is that it convinces every ordinary citizen that you cannot speak truth. It takes away all legitimacy from what you do. What is the other reaction of politics? Is to have anti-BJP alliance. All kinds of friends now come to me, boss, very dangerous time. All secular parties have become together. Congress, there, Aadmi, you people are secular, so let's all come together. I have said to them privately, and I have no hesitation in saying openly, that forming an anti-BJP political coalition is a sure guarantee of entrenching BJP for the next 20 or 30 years. In Bihar, RJD and JDU have formed an alliance, and they have succeeded. And that success is going to be the fatal mistake that they are, because that alliance will ensure that BJP will become an all-Bihar party of a kind BJP has never been and was not going to be. So political coalitions against BJP is not going to work. It is going to be counterproductive. Plain oppositional politics is not going to work. The only option, as I said, is to reimagine alternative politics. That's not enough. That's a necessity. It's not sufficient. We have to do a lot more. Alternative politics has to be alternative, but it also has to be viable. It has to have energy. It has to have drive. That is the organizational challenge. And this is what brings me to the opportunity used here. While we talk about Mr. Modi, probably I should take you to the last 2 years as well. What we call Anna movement, or the Jal movement, or the anti-corruption movement, it has generated a new energy in this country. It has generated unprecedented positive energy in this country, which was unthinking. I know I have been giving these lectures for the last 20 years, and I know the kind of people who used to come to listen to me, and I know the people who come to listen to me today. There is a striking difference. 3 years ago, people who came to listen to my lectures would be usually old people who would say, yes, what you said was right, in our olden days, politics used to be good, let us revive those days, it is very hard, people of this country have got corrupted, there is no hope in this country. And today, when I speak, I see lots of young people, I see a lot of wretchedness, a lot of gully, which I have never had in the whole of my life. I didn't meet this leader. And as I was developing white hair, I was about to slip into that tendency of people who have white hair to say things were so nice in my face. And this generation, which we today, I'm so delighted that this new generation has proved us wrong, that this new generation has shown much greater idealist energy than my generation. So what is the opportunity? We have seen the challenge. What is the opportunity? Opportunity is this new energy which the country has suddenly found. Opportunity is association of politics with hope. You never spoke these two words in the same breath in the past. Politics was associated with dirty, wretched, corrupt, and despair. All these words came to your mind when you thought of politics. And hope in anything at all was talking about spiritualism, was talking about aesthetics, was talking about economy sometimes. But in the last few years, lots of people meet me and say, most of them speak in the past tense, you people had given us hope. I recognize that they are speaking in the past tense, but I also recognize that they are using the word politics and hope in the same sentence, which never happened earlier. Politics has been associated with hope. And for the first time, it looks, or at least it looks for a brief that positive, constructive politics of hope could also be viable. It could actually work. It could actually win. That ordinary people could contest election and win, that a party that came from nowhere could actually get 28 seats suddenly. What we thought was impossible, suddenly was possible. So we have had hope, we have had energy, and we have had viability or possibility. All these three were not available in the last 5 years ago. So the real challenge now is how do we marry this opportunity to this challenge. There is this challenge, there is this opportunity. And to my mind, the next 5 years are a battle between this opportunity and this challenge. And in that sense, Mr. Modi's victory has actually opened up one more opportunity, which is by wiping out Congress, he has actually opened the way for alternative viable politics. Congress, for the last 1 or 2 decades, was the biggest stumbling block in the way of alternative politics. Congress wouldn't do anything, but it wouldn't go away. And as we all know, the majority of the votes of the poor, the marginalized, Dalits, Adivasis, minorities went to Congress party. Mr. Modi's victory opens up the possibility that Congress as we know it may just sink. I'm not writing a premature obituary of the Congress party. I know these things can be wrong. All I'm saying to you is that the last 2 decades have shown that wherever Congress has fallen below 20% votes, it has just gone down and down and down. It has never come up again. Tamil Nadu, Bengal, Bihar, Uttar Pradesh. After 2014 election, perhaps Telangana, Andhra Pradesh. Add to it, perhaps Maharashtra and Haryana. And that belt from Gujarat to Odisha, Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Odisha, where Congress exists. It is an opposition party. It gets more than 20% votes, but it is in perpetual opposition. It's a party that just exists and offers no opposition. If that also goes, where will Congress exist? Karnataka, Kerala, maybe Assam will be wiped out by next year from this list. So Congress, as we have known as a nationwide political party, may just break and sink. May, I'm not saying it will, but it may. And this opens up a vacuum in opposition. It opens up a possibility. And here is an opportunity. The country faces one of the biggest challenges in the last, ever since Indian Republic came into being. I have said it again and again. It is a challenge to the very idea of India. And it so happens that this is the very moment when the country has an opportunity of a kind that it hasn't seen in the last 20-30 years. The real challenge is whether this new opportunity, this new force, this politics of hope will acquire viability. The challenge is whether this new politics of hope and energy will be able to take on and provide an opposition to this threat to the idea of India on a sustained basis for the next 4 to 5 years. Opposition will take place not inside the parliament. Politics of opposition will be on the street, on the Maidans. Will we have the courage to fight that battle? The next 5 years are a challenge. These are challenges of reimagining alternative politics, of giving new life and blood to alternative politics. And who else can do it better than to sit here wearing these Aadmi Party caps.